My therapist once asked me a question that should have been simple. Tell me about your mother. I remember laughing, because there was no simple answer to that. You see, my mom didn't believe in therapy. To her, therapy was for locals, crazy people. Whenever I would talk about anxiety or depression, she would wave her hand and say, "Ay, mija, mejor ponte a limpiar, go do something productive." But the truth is, my mom knew more about depression than anybody I had ever met. She just never believed that you were supposed to talk about it. And God forbid you tried to get help. The last time my mom went through my purse, she found my antidepressants. ¿Qué es esto? ¿Son drogas? Drugs? I tried explaining that they were prescribed, but she didn't want to hear it. She just shook her head and said, "Ay, mija, only locals take pills like this. What were you thinking?" After that, she didn't speak to me for about a week. And that was normal for her. She didn't like talking about things that made her uncomfortable. And there was a reason for that. My mom grew up on a farm in Guadalajara with her parents and her 12 siblings. Her brothers took care of the land, while she helped her sisters take care of the house. One day, her mom sent her out into the village to buy a few ingredients for dinner. But she didn't come back that night. It turned out that she had been raped. Immigrant families often endure extreme hardship in the pursuit of a better life for themselves and for their children. Because survival often requires resilience, pain becomes normalized. Seen not as trauma, but simply as a reality of life. But the truth is that this normalization of pain is in and of itself a trauma response, one that gets passed down through the generations that come after. My grandmother immigrated to the US in 1971. My parents were born here, and so was I. But the trauma that she faced didn't end with her. This is The Weight We Carry, an original, based on a true story. She came back the next day, trying to pretend like nothing happened, trying to move on. And maybe she would have been able to, except for one key detail. She was pregnant. She tried to hide it for as long as she could, but eventually she started to show. Her parents kicked her out of the house. They didn't even look at her, they just said, "Lárgate de aquí." She wandered the streets alone, carrying a purse filled with nothing but heavy rocks, ready to throw them at anybody that tried to hurt her again. She carried on like that for weeks. No one would help her. They would take one look at her stomach and call her puta, slut. Weeks turned into months. And after a long night of grueling labor, she gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. I'm going to name you Milagro. Miracle. And so now, she was raising a child alone on the streets, just trying to survive. But one day, her luck changed. She met a kind man named Mateo, who took her in, gave her a bed and a warm meal. And that night, as he watched her rock her baby to sleep, he decided in that moment that he was going to take care of that child as his own. Our father always wanted the best for us. When he died, our mom threw herself into her work. She cleaned every corner of the house, scrubbed every surface, mopped every room, and by the end of the night, she was too exhausted to be sad. I imagine that when you go through something like she did, you learn to bottle it all. And that's exactly how she raised us. I remember one night at a parent-teacher conference, the school psychologist had told us that my brother Jorge might need to be tested for bipolar disorder. She might as well have said nothing because there was no way my mom would ever believe her. He never did get help. And as he grew older, things got worse. There were days when he was the best brother in the world, but then there were other days. Days when he wouldn't come out of his room. Days where he would hide our toys, destroy our homework. And then they got even worse. Teachers called again, then counselors, then the police. But eventually he stopped trying to explain his pain. And when people stop explaining their pain, they usually start trying to numb it. The call came late one night. It was my mom. Mija, your brother, he's in the hospital. He had been found unconscious. When I got to the hospital, they told me that it had been an overdose. I rushed over to his side as soon as they would let me. He looked skinnier than I remembered. There were tubes in his arms, bruises on his hands. And when he saw me, he tried to smile. But then he broke down and apologized. He said he had tried explaining what was happening in his head, but eventually he gave up because nobody wanted to hear it. Then he asked about our mom. The doctors had offered to call her, to let her speak to him. She had refused. She had said that she was embarrassed. And before I left the hospital, he asked me to do one thing. To get her to come see me. When I got to her house, the lights were off. Of course they were. I walked into the kitchen and there she was, scrubbing the counter furiously. She asked how he was doing. I told her that he was alive. Barely. She didn't even look at me. She just kept cleaning. And then she said that she wouldn't go to the hospital not because she didn't care, but because she didn't believe what the doctors were saying. In her mind, Jorge didn't need therapy. He just needed to be stronger. And that's when something inside me finally broke. What is the problem, Mommy? Why can't you go see your son? He needs help and you can't even get over your own pride? I know I was a mistake, Mommy. I know you didn't want me, but you chose Jorge. You chose to be a mother to him, so act like one. He needs help, Mommy. We've all known for years and you just ignored him. So please, Mommy, don't ignore him this time. She stood there for a moment, like she couldn't believe that I was talking to her this way. But then, she grabbed her coat, and she told me to take her to the hospital. When she walked into his room, Jorge looked shocked, like he couldn't believe that she was real. She stood there, and she wouldn't look at him. But when she finally made eye contact, she did something I'd never seen her do before. She apologized. She said she had spent years ignoring his behavior, his cries for help. But now she saw that he had been hurting, and that she had been too afraid to admit it to herself. But now she wanted to make it right. My mother cried. Jorge cried. I sobbed. And before I left the hospital room, my mom pulled me to the side and said, "Mija, I am sorry that I didn't understand when you took those pills. I understand now. I am sorry that I got so angry with you. If what had happened today had happened differently, if it had been you or Marta or Maria or any of my other children, I never would have been able to forgive myself. And Mija, I never want you to believe that I do not love you. You may have been a product of hate, but when you came into my life, you changed it for the better. You gave me a reason to live. You are my little milagro." Let's take Jorge home.